Hey folks, welcome to Sketch and Stitch. My name's Billy, and on this channel we cover costume design from concept to construction. So, without further ado, let's get started with some marker rendering. To start off, I have my cheat sheets of what colors of marker I own, and these are Prismacolor markers. They're double-ended, and they come in multiple colors. They're expensive. I have my marker paper with my rendering or my drawing underneath it, as you can see. And I have a palette to the side so that I have a little scratch spot to work through. And I'm gonna start off with a skin tone. This is brick beige. You can see it's a nice peachy skin tone. And the thing to remember is when you're doing markers, you need to have a light source. So to help me in my little cheat, I have a little arrow tab. So it's always letting me know that my sun is coming this way. So highlights will go on this side of my body, shadows will go on this side of my body. That way I don't ever forget. And I can also peel this off later and throw it away, and it's not damaging my drawing at all. So when I go through here, I'm going to always move in the direction of the body. So whatever body part I'm filling in, I'm going to make sure that I move in that direction so that any lines that are created from my marker are hidden within my lines, and they work for me and not against me. So here we go. With markers, you do have to work fast, so I'm working very quickly. I'm always gonna pick the lightest shade first. That way I can always go darker, but you can't go lighter with markers. They're fast, but they're a little unforgiving, so you have to work quickly and just commit. Legs are finished, at least the first layer, and I'm going to go through the midriff next. For the midriff, I'm going to use a scrubbing motion to fill it in very quickly. It also allows you to not have any weird lines from dried marker. I'm going to go into the chest area next, up into the neck. I'm going to go over here and do the arms. So I'm going to move those in the direction that the arm is. So always move in the direction that the body part or garment is going. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the face using the same scrubbing motion. Okay, there is layer one. Next, I'm going to start creating shadows, and my shadows are going to either be cast by light on the body part or a body part casting a shadow on another body part. So I'm going to go through and pick the spots that I want to shadow the darkest, that are the furthest away from the light. My light source is coming this way. So I'm going to go right down. You notice I'm using the same marker because with Prismacolor markers, you could easily get 2 or 3 shades out of the same marker. So I'm not going to change markers for the first couple times that I go through here. Finding those crevices where I want the shadows to be. Next, I'm gonna go and do one more layer. Each time I do a layer of color, I'm gonna go and make it a little bit smaller than the previous one. So this time I'm not gonna go all the way up to the same spot, but I'm gonna get close. And that's gonna create layers of color and shadow. Okay. That is probably as far as I can get with brick beige, which is the first color I started with. Next, I'm going to move to another shade. This one is light peach, and it has a peachy quality, but it's going to add an extra layer of depth to the skin. So I'm using this as a shadow. So I'm just going over the shadowed spots of my. Last but not least, I'm going to go in with a light tan. So I just find the tiniest little bits of this, just in the deepest little crevices, where it's gonna be the darkest. And with that, my skin is taken care of. Next, I'm gonna jump into the feathers and the shoes and the body parts. I'm gonna go and find the lightest color. I have chose to go with this aqua and green. I'm gonna start with the lightest shade first, light aqua. It's a real bright and bold turquoise color. And we're gonna start filling in the shoes. And this is the time that you're gonna wanna fill in everything in the shape that it is. So for the shoe, I'm gonna work my way around it. And I have two tips. I could use the fine tip if I was afraid this was too big, but I kind of like using the larger tip. It gives me, I think I can control quite a bit with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill in some of these feathers that are on the outside here. And to do that, I want to move in the direction that the feathers are going. So I'm going to get really close to the body, and then I'm going to move in that direction and use that to my advantage. Go right along the edge, and then I'm going to fill those feathers in, move it in that direction. I'm going to go ahead and go on up and do the headdress as well. So this headdress is a big feather headdress that comes out of a big plume here. So I'm going to come out and follow the shapes of those feathers. There is step one for the feathers. Now I'm going to go back in with the same color, add some depth, and start to create the feather textures that I want. So find those shadow spots, fill that in. It's going to be shadowed closest to her body, and then where the feathers overlay. I am going to swap out for the smaller end of my brush, and I'm going to go in and add some another layer around the bottom of the shoe, around the tip of the shoe where the shadow is. I'm always paying attention to my light direction. That's the key. So you can kind of see I'm always shadowing on the side away from the sun, or my arrow that I have drawn here. Crease, and then I'm going to go back and see if there's any other spots that I can add another layer to. Kind of exhausted my light teal, so I'm going to move to a darker shade. We're going to start to add some feather detail, which will be really fun. Okay, I'm going to use the smallest side, and I'm going to figure out what kind of feather texture do I want. Well, there are a couple, and I'm going to show you a few. You could be very tight with your rendering, which means that you could draw all the individual feathers all the way up. You know, always look at real feathers, but I could do this. To me, that's a lot of feathers, and I'm not that tight with my rendering. Or I could do something that's loose. So I'm always going to find the spline or the center of the feather, and then I'm going to just draw squiggles to create the illusion of feathers. It's very artsy, but for costume renderings, it's just to give the director a visual reference of what we plan on doing. So I'm going to go in and find the centers of these feathers and do some artistic flourishes. So I'm going to go find the center of the feather first, and then I'm going to add some texture in. Center of the feather, find some flourishes. Center or spline of the feather, find some of those flourishes. Now I need to create some of the jewels or rhinestones that I want to put on this bra and panty and shoe. And in order to do that, I'm going to create the shadow with the tip of this first, work my way around, and then I'm going to create these dots, which are going to be eventually going to be jewels. So find the shadowed corner, the dark shadow corner, and then dots for these jewel tones, or these little beads that are going to be on this. I'm going to add in some hanging dangling earrings. Okay, now I have my spring green, and I'm going to go in and add it into some of the shadows here. It's going to add some vibrancy. Just going to pull in another shade. Now I have added quite a bit of color in. I could decide if I want to add any more shadow in. To help me do the shadow, I'm going to use a cool gray. I don't always use cool gray. I don't always add gray to add shadow. A lot of times it's better if you use a darker color of the same family. But sometimes the cool colors can help mesh these layers and mesh them down. So I'm going to add in a little bit of the shadow in. I'm also going to add some to the white glove that is here. And I'm going to give her white hair, I believe. So I'm going to add some shadow into her hair as well, because I think it's going to look really stunning. I could add some shadow around the skin, but it tends to muddle skin if you add too much, so be really careful adding in shadow with cool gray, or any kind of gray. You just have to use it very sparingly. Okay, looking really, really nice. I'm going to go in next and start to add outline to this. So in order to do that, I'm going to use these tech liners. I'm going to start at the bottom here. You have to work carefully though, because if you don't let it dry, you can smear. It's going to allow you to draw back in a little bit of the detail work that you were missing, that you've kind of blurred out with your markers. Add in some of those textures. I'm gonna find those little jewels that are on my shoes. And with hair, you're always gonna draw it the way it grows. That's the key. So draw in the shape and the position that it's growing in. We could spend a whole tutorial on hair. This hair is one of those things that you just gotta get used to drawing it. Okay, I'm gonna go back in with a smaller brush or smaller pencil or pen and do the face. So to do that, I have a 1, which is considerably smaller. I'm gonna go in and really finely place some of these things, like the eyes. Now I'm gonna go back and add in the feather texture. So to do that, I'm gonna just refine the spline of my feathers. So I'm gonna go down and find the spline of the feathers and then add in some texture. The spline, texture, or squiggle marks, squiggles, squiggle, squiggle. Finally, I'm gonna go in and add some sparkle. So to do that, I'm going to create these little X's, little cross strokes that create shine. And I'm going to go into the top of the shoe. I'm gonna go ahead and draw in some sequins or some little dots to add texture to the skirt. Finally, I'm gonna go ahead and add highlights with a white charcoal pencil. So this is gonna add some nice shine, especially where I have sequins or I want sequins at. You could use paint, you could use a colored pencil. I really like the charcoal pencil, and it adds just a little bit of shine. I'm gonna pick a couple spots, especially where the light is touching onto some of my garment here. And the final step is going to make sure that she has a ground to stand on. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that. And I can remove my sticker. And she is finished, she's complete. So lots of steps, but just remember lots of layers, and always remember where your lighting source is. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below, or if there's something specifically you would like to see me tackle, please do, and I can't wait to hear from you. Thanks for watching.